You notice that pro players use casual like a slur? Like, oh, f me, man. God forbid I have a job. God forbid I drink, I go to bars. I'm a casual. Oh, don't listen to me. It's time. I made a mess there. Let's Argue is my series where I take to Twitter, engage with your Halo takes, your crazy ideas, your normal opinions, and tell you whether or not I agree or disagree. If you want to contribute to Let's Argue, follow me on Twitter, linked below, and look out for my weekly thread for Let's Argue. Let's get started. Alrighty, so this guy whose username is like a file path says, the store prices in Halo Infinite are currently fine. The people whining are poor. I disagree. This whole like you're poor thing, like what the f is that about? The value of money varies greatly, not just from person to person, but from demographic to demographic and from region to region. For example, you know, $20 for a bundle, okay. You know, I live in a state that has 1/3 the living cost of the national average. It's you know, considerably cheaper to just live in my state. 20 bucks, you know, that can get me a lot. I mean, that's like 20 bucks, that's like, I don't know, 24 beers. That's more beer. But if you're in a state like California, you probably pay $20 just to step outside, and then someone else, they'll charge you $20 when you go back in your house. So, you know, perspective is important there, and I mentioned that when I did my first video about Halo Infinite's progression and its flaws. I had said I'm not going to talk about prices because there's no objective way for me to tell you what is inexpensive and what isn't. Unless it was egregious, like if it was $100 for a helmet, yeah, we'll draw the line there. But, you know, $20 to $10 to $5, people are going to interpret that differently. So, you know, people aren't poor because they don't want to drop $20 on HAZOP. You know, you're that's just rude. And I hope a lot of you are more mature when engaging with people's reasonings for not buying stuff or for calling stuff expensive. You don't have to go after someone's financials because they might flex on you and you might feel fucking stupid. Will K says, Halo fans are always angry about something. It really feels like Halo fans and gamers in general have become unable to enjoy things as they exist. If a buggy, unbalanced mess like Halo 2 came out today, it would get panned. I disagree. What has changed isn't the fans, I think, in the grander sense. I think there is some type of cultural change about how comfortable people are with criticizing things, but I think the major thing that has changed is how easily accessible negative commentary is. Chances are, Will, and anybody else, you know, even myself included, when you first got into the Halo franchise, you probably had a much more limited access to community outlets, like whether it be Twitter or some type of forum or a Discord group. It was just naturally harder for you to find people who would dislike these games. Now, since you have such an open and easy exposure to it, it seems like so many more people have negative feelings towards them nowadays. If you do some digging through some old internet, some old sites, some old forums, you can find complaints about the old Halo games really not too different from what we're talking about now, really. It's almost like we're recycling the same likes and dislikes about Halo and the same arguments and conversations over the last 15 to 20 years, really. You know, Halo 2 had its fair share of controversy when it released, and it's just at that right age where it's not impossible to find records of like rant threads for Halo 2 from 2004, 2005, you know, leading up into Halo 3. Each game has had its fair share of controversy and kickback. It exists. It's just so much easier to find now, so it seems like it's a lot more. Ashley P says, Halo Infinite's campaign has so little variety when it comes to both level design and aesthetics that it all feels like one mission that drags on way too long, albeit with some great boss fights. Also, the Harbinger's plans are so vague that I didn't care about her or the Endless. Ashley, I 100% agree. Yeah, this is for real. I feel this in every fiber of my being. I agree. I agree. Halo Infinite's campaign is completely devoid of the environmental variety that has embodied every Halo game, every mainline Halo campaign. You know, maybe with like ODST and Reach being the ones prior that were the least varied, but even those games, even Reach especially, is far more varied in its environments than Infinite is. In fact, Infinite's environments are so limited that if you pay close attention, the Forerunner interiors that are used in the campaign missions are very noticeably recycled. Like, they're repeating. It's the same rooms, it's the same hallways, it's the same little, when you go up the ramp and you come around the U-bend and you go up another ramp, or it's that same atrium space, or it's the same tower. It is, for lack of a better word, repetitive. And it's a little ironic, really, as we're part of this game's kind of claim to fame is that it's finally us getting to explore a Halo ring. We're not going anywhere. We're stuck over here on Alpine Mountain Fragment for the entirety of the game. So yes, I agree. The environments are so limited, and that was a personal disappointment of mine to really come to grips with how uninteresting the Zeta Halo is, not just to explore, but to experience. And I hope potentially that changes in the future, but it might be too little too late. This one here from New Mesa Halo: the lack of weapons in the sandbox from other titles has hurt Halo Infinite's playability. I disagree. And this isn't the first time I've seen a sentiment like this, and it's one of those things that makes me think, man, have you guys played a Halo game? Like, it is not out of pocket for Halo games to get rid of prior weapons and then to just introduce a bunch of new ones. I mean, that is a trend as old as Halo 2. That it's not something I feel is hurting Halo Infinite right now. It has a fairly comparable sandbox. It's full of its own quirks and ideas, and it fills all the roles needed to be filled. And I think there's plenty of room for them to add stuff in over time. I don't think it's going to be a thing like, oh, we'll never see the X weapon. There are going to be some I think won't make it just because they're either lackluster in their own games or just not worth bringing to this sandbox. But it'll evolve over time, and I think for launch, what we got was more than sufficient. Django Bun Bun says esports should not be considered when balancing Halo Infinite. I disagree. What I agree with, however, is the notion that esports should not be the end-all source of feedback when cultivating and balancing the sandbox for this game. Now, that is a pitfall some people believe in, and to some extent, it's something that 343 has had a track record of doing, is giving esports, I think, esports players and esports feedback way more credit than it's actually worth, to try to appeal to a certain audience. And if I'm being frank, from my interpretation, that's because this is an audience that generates revenue. Esports has a price tag associated with it. It has gain financially. So, from a financial standpoint, 343, of course, is motivated to make esports work. That being said, I think there's a pitfall in suddenly just giving a pro player, quote unquote, more say than a normal person. Because in many ways, an esports player, like that, a pro player, that's like a self-given title for many people. Like, one day this guy is just playing MCC, and then he puts pro player in his Twitter bio the next day, and suddenly his feedback is more relevant than Joe Schmo in my comments, right? That doesn't make any sense. There, of course, are actual pro players, but here's the thing about that. Just because they're good at playing the game doesn't mean they actually understand the game mechanics. It doesn't mean they actually understand the game design. And just because they're good at playing it, that doesn't make them instantly qualified to be giving this more mechanical feedback for the game. Like, you might have like a NASCAR driver. He might be a great NASCAR driver. Does that instantly make him like a pro mechanic? You know, probably not. Probably not. You know? Oh man, he won the Indy 500. You think you can rebuild my transmission? A lot of them probably can't. So yeah, we gotta watch the slippery slopes. We gotta be careful. And I think 3 for 3, as someone who's been through the vetting process for giving community feedback, there are, at least in this game, a lot of gateways for that. And people come in with different levels of experience and different, you know, POVs for feedback. And, you know, it would not be like me to say, oh, esports doesn't matter, esports players don't matter, don't, you know, ignore them. There are players all the same, they deserve to be heard. I just don't think they deserve to be more heard than, you know, the casuals, as they would say. They use it as a slur. You notice that pro players use casual like a slur? Like, oh, f me, man. God forbid I have a job. God forbid I drink, I go to bars. I'm a casual. Oh, don't listen to me. That's going to do it for this episode of Let's Argue. Leave your comments below. What did you think about the topics being discussed today? There's a lot of variability in there, so let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and like the video if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter, of course, if you want to participate or see any other of my very normal posts about Halo. Follow me on Instagram, and you can even join my Discord linked below. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.